I'm live now. Hi everyone, we are live. Thank you so much for watching. Today's episode will be really great. So thank you for your time. Welcome back to Level Up with Naomi, where we empower and lift each other up. So it's exciting. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And especially this episode, please share it to your family and friends. I know there will be somebody out there who will need to hear what we're going to discuss today. So, our guest speaker is Tricia Parido, a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, speaker, and published writer. She is nationally certified life coach, an international master addiction specialist, and a professional life interventionist with a psych degree in process behavioral and chemical addiction who loves to help change lives. Specializing in life recovery and post treatment journeys, Parido is ever committed to guiding her clients worldwide in conquering their life challenges. As an active business owner of a thriving coaching practice, Turning Leads Recovery Life and Wellness Coaching, she not only teaches her clients how to live free, but also teaches others to become professional coaches. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, please help me welcome Miss Tricia Parido. Hi, Tricia.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Well, I'm really excited and I'm really inspired. I was looking at your story, your website and your coachings, your some of your videos. So I'm really excited and thank you so much for your time. Thank you for gracing your presence in this show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Trisha, before we start, let me ask. I know I've already given some introduction, but let me ask you, who is Trisha Parido? How would you describe yourself?
Well, outside of all of those things that those wonderful things that you said, all of my, hard-earned accomplishments, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and just really a fierce optimist, a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, and you know I just genuinely like to teach and guide people.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love you already. Well, some most people said, how you are as an adult has a lot more to do when you were a child. So how would you describe yourself as a child?
Oh wow. Well, as a child, knowing what I know now as a practitioner, I can tie, a lot of the things that I've overcome in my life, and I can tie the reason for them becoming a challenge for myself back to childhood, because I think I was just born with this, with perfectionism issues. I literally, just always was having to overachieve, and you know, but also, just somebody that always felt disconnected and dismissed. So it was kind of a double edged thing for me, um, because I I felt like, I was reading, writing, doing arithmetic, playing chess at 4, playing classical piano at 5.5, and competitively swimming at 6.5. And, just just all of those things, but then in the same respect, having, these internal, the way that I translated my external environment and the data that was being sent to me or given to me, was translated differently than probably what it was meant to. But again, I did always have like these periods, or not even periods, dreams of nobody being able to hear me or see me. They were very terrifying in the time, and so I just always just kind of felt like I was just this standalone thing.
Standard.
My earliest childhood trauma was at the age of 4. So 4 to 21 were really hard years for me, but they were also good at the same time. So it's really a long story.
But that made you the person you are right now, right? That life experiences, challenges along the way. So what made you choose this topic?
Well, I mean, okay, so I've had I had a 30-year journey that was filled with trauma, addictions, eating disorders, negative attachments, and a lot of habits that were holding me hostage. But I also have an over 25-year recovery journey that really inspires me to share with everybody, like how it really changed my life. Right, my life was completely transformed in my recovery journey, because along the way I had to learn a whole lot of things, right? And I think it was when I truly stopped relying on and allowing the things outside of myself to dictate, manipulate, or alter my genuine self. And that's to highlight, when you have a traumatic experience, you have a child, an early on conditioned way of responding to that, or something that we go to because we've never experienced that kind of trauma. So that might be, um, you know, hand to mouth. Because what we, when our kids fall down, they scrape their knee. While we're bandaging them up, we might give them a popsicle. When they go to the doctors, they get, a shot or a vaccination. What do? They get a lollipop. They get to choose. Ooh, you get a lollipop.
Uh-huh.
And so we develop a lot of these little nuances along the way. And then you add that with mm, the example in which we're led by. So if everybody that's older than you, the adults in your life, are sweeping all of their troubles and woes under the carpet, and they're always putting on that good face and putting on a
Yes.
facade or whatever. Like I learned at age 12, like my dad had been killed in a tragic accident. And so when we're at the funeral, I was like, how are these people carrying on conversation? How are they and really, so when I started scanning the room, they were all eating. I mean, I'm sorry, they were all drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. So at 12, I was like, well, I'm going to give that a try because I feel like
Mm.
crap, and they look like they feel better to me. Nobody did anything maliciously, but you know what? Like that was the conditioned way of what I saw adult people did. You know, I also witnessed a lot of restrictive eating, and so I learned how to attach my emotional needs to these things, whether it was alcohol, food, um, other chemical substances, other people, right? Like that codependency on other people to make you feel valid and valued. Like those are hard things to get over.
Mm-hmm. So you were telling us some bumps and storms along the way, right? So um,
Mhm.
it's all not sunshine and rainbows, like what you said. They're all not lollipops and and
Mhm.
stickers, when we give to our kids. So would you tell us like a specific situation where things didn't go as planned, and what measures have you done?
Wow, that's a loaded question because a lot of things in my life didn't go as planned. So, and I think, a lot of people that might be listening right now, you might be saying to yourself, you know what? Yeah, I rely on Ben and Jerry's when I'm feeling sad. Um, when I got fired from my job, or when I lost my job because of COVID, you know what? I started drinking a bottle of wine every day, and now I'm drinking two. There could be so many different versions, and I can say that I've done them all. Like I've relied on food, I've restricted food, I've relied on alcohol. When anxiety has been something in my life, like prescription medications, and what I've learned along the way is that, you know one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to die. Like I could feel my liver working. Like I wasn't happy with mental clarity. I was just always in a fog. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, and just all of these things. And so, I started looking at what is that emotional attachment? What emotional purpose am I giving to all of these things outside of me? Like, you know, alcohol's clearly not making any of my problems go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually exacerbating them. So let's take a long, hard look at that. It's not only not making the problems go away, it's making them bigger, but it's also ruining my body. And so then you look at your relationship with food and overspending. Like, why is it that I go to Target for 3 things and I come back with a basket of 25 items that were just bright, shiny, whatever? Oh, I gotta have this in the moment. Like, what was I hoping for that to fix for me? And it's that authentic look at ourselves that allows us to make corrections. It's that authentic look at ourselves that allows us to see where we are reliant on something that really doesn't have the power to make anything better, change it, or fix it. If we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people, or we're all constantly needing praise, that is an issue. We've got to be able to generate that from inside. So, you know, uh, probably for a lot of people, a really good reference point would be, you know, for anybody that every day they have to have their 6 a.m. spin class, and if they don't get it, their life crumbles, and they're irritated, agitated, annoyed the whole rest of the day, and just nothing ever works right if I can't do my spin class. This is a negative attachment. I don't care how healthy it is for you, it's a negative attachment. Because guess what? Your kids should be able to get sick and stay home from school. You should be able to stay home with them and like pick that spin class up and move it to a different time of day when when it's more appropriate, or whatever, and have it still be the same meaning for you. Your day ought to still be able to go on. So yes, things happen that we're not planning on. It's our level of distress tolerance that we don't have. It's the level of emotion regulation that we don't have. It's that knee jerk impulsive reactivity that we utilize in
Mm-hmm.
our life that doesn't work for us, and that we need to change. And the fact that we all move through life, I shouldn't say we all, most people, and if you take time to observe yourself, do this exercise today. Notice as you move through your life, notice every time you judge something. That might be how the person next to you is driving on the freeway, whether they're distracted or not distracted. If you have a judgy thought in your head, you're in the stance of a judger. So when we look across society and why we can't come to some sort of a more peaceful way of existing, it's because everybody wants to judge everybody, and everybody wants to control everybody's thoughts, feelings, emotions, opinions, beliefs, needs, wants, dreams, desires, to fit into some form that matches what they want, how they want to see the world, instead of just going, this is my life too. It gets to look, feel, be however I want it to, and extending that to every other person in the world. Like, our religious beliefs may or may not be the same. Doesn't matter. I'm still interested and intrigued to find out and learn more about what every other person's beliefs are. But that's me. It's me allowing myself to expand my consciousness, to not be so rigid, to not need to dig my heels in and be right all the time, to allow people to be what fills them, not what fills me, but also not to need to be filled by other people, places, and things.
Yeah.
Um, so I could talk forever. I mean, like, literally.
That's fine. I can listen forever too. I know the audience will. So that really made you become the life coach that you are, a wonderful life coach that you are right now. So, what being a life coach? What is the common misconception of
Mm.
your profession?
Well, in my very specific profession, which is a recovery life coach, because I do specialize in in recovery from a lot of things. And I'm going to make a statement about that before we leave here. But the stigma is this about recovery coaches, is that we are just people that have walked a recovery journey and done well with it and want to monetize our own personal success, that we're nothing but glorified paid sponsors. And that may be true for some. I don't know. I can't speak for everybody in my industry. I don't know how they came to be, but I can tell you this: I have 5.5 years of higher level education. I have a degree, I have certifications, and I have 13 certifications to be a fact, and to be, more pinpoint. And so it's not a glorified, sponsor in any way, shape, or form. And I think that, when people can mesh their lived experience, their own true successes, and intertwine that with evidence-based practice or accredited education, because I think that is really important. Because if you're going to an institution that hasn't bothered to take the time to accredit it, you're learning somebody else's method. And I think that's part of an issue with society today, is we all read these self-help books, but none of us know how to add, edit, delete, make it our own so that it fits into our life. We're always trying to fit our life into somebody else's method. And it doesn't work that way, because again, we can't live somebody else's life. We have to live our life. So we have to know what's going to work well for us. And that takes a lot of self-observation. So, I think, what I was able to do was take the psychological practices, skill sets, and tactics that were highly effective in my life, in my journey, and convert them into a coaching model, because coaching speaks more my language. Even though I'm a certified counselor, counseling and therapy are awesome. They're amazing. They're wonderful. But I think, my personality, the way that I know how to be of best service is as a coach. Because I'm very action oriented, pick myself up by the bootstraps kind of person. Like, come on, we're going to make this work. Like, we're going to keep digging in until we figure it out. And that's just me. And I think that that's important. I think everybody that has a recovery journey to be found or to be had, you need to find the practitioner or the program or the facility or the combination of a lot of things that speaks your language. Don't just go, oh, I've been drinking too much, I'm going to find the first outpatient program that's close to me and think that it's going to be the right one. It took me 2 months to vet the program that I was going to go to. And then from there, I would call periodically and I would talk to one case manager on the phone for a while. I'd talk to the other one. Like, I knew the whole staff before I got there. I'm not saying that I'll do that, but I have a life intervention option that I allow people to sign up for, so that we can spend 5 days getting to know each other. Whether that be, writing back and forth, answering questionnaires and surveys, having some one-on-one conversation. Because why would you sign up for a big 12 or more week program if you don't know that you're going to have a connection with that person? So if we get to the end of a consultation and we're not like instantly connected, like, I might recommend that. So I recommend that everybody, learn how to add, edit, delete, make it your own, find a provider that speaks your language, but also, learn how to be effective for yourself.
Very true.
I just think that it's important. It's how I did it. It changed my life. I took the time to study and learn everything that happened to me, because what took me out was different than, I had ever experienced. So 30-year journey is a long time, right? Like 30 years of trying to figure it out. And then the last bout, really left me with no options. I needed to know why. I mean, the first class I took was the physiological effects of drugs and alcohol on the physical body. And it was because I had received a prescription medication from a medical provider that should never be provided or prescribed to a daily drinker, right? Not without a very deep conversation about that, And so it took 5 years for it to take me out, but in 5 years, nonetheless, it took me out. Meaning, the physiological addiction had set in, and I had never experienced a physiological addiction before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I had addictions, they were never, my physical body had never become dependent.
Yeah. So, I always tell everyone, that one size doesn't fit all. What works for Tricia may not work for Naomi. What works for Naomi may not work to our audience, right?
Right?
So we really have to have that connection. You are right. So, so what are the best resources that helped you? I tell my client, I tell my clients, I tell my audience, and people that I talk to, that Google and YouTube are not always right. Anybody can post something in there, right? So for you, what were the best resources that helped you, and you think you can help our
Okay.
audience, I mean?
Okay. So if you don't have a pen and a paper, maybe push pause and go get one. Because, you know, or come back later and write things down, whatever. But here's the deal. Very first thing is, this saved my life. Um, in general, society holds a very narrow perspective around the words addiction and recovery. Our minds go directly to people that are down, out, ill, poorly functioning, who need to
Mm-hmm.
be removed from their environment so they can be fixed. When in fact, there is a wide array of what I refer to as the not so normal faces of addiction. So we've got to be willing to broaden our perspectives, right? Because if you have an attachment to something, whether it's sugar, shopping, alcohol, I don't care, people, overbooking your calendar, whatever it is, right? A recovery journey's for you. If you have, trauma and anxiety, etc., like, there is a recovery journey for you so that you can learn how to live life and live it freely without feeling guilty, selfish, punished, or restricted. So you want to start to identify, what are those negative attachments? What are those habits? What are those addictions? Maybe you don't have all of those categories, but start identifying some things. Start identifying what is the emotional purpose that you assign to them. And then you can start to have some words, right? Now you have some words that you, and adjectives that describe you, that when you're looking at, say, programs near you, whatever, programs near me, um, you know, that you have some words to help you describe yourself to somebody else, but also to cross reference. Because if you're going to say an MFT, which is a licensed marriage and family therapist for your addiction, and they just took one required semester on addiction, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
specifically say that they specialize in addiction, and you're saying, but I'm just overspending, I'm just over shopping, they still may not know how to help you through that. They are a
Yes.
marriage and family therapist. Like, we all have our lane, we all have our specialty. So I just want you to know what kind of a specialist you might need so that you can narrow down your search.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can reach out to somebody like me, who's a certified case manager, and you can find somebody there that way.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to bring you in if my program doesn't fit you. I'm going to help you create a team for yourself. And so we also have outreach coordinators that sometimes I connect people with an outreach coordinator. Like, I don't have a good connection for this person. Like, here's an outreach coordinator I have that works all across the US. Let's let them help you find the right thing. Right. Um, and so be your best advocate. And in order to do that, you have to know yourself. You have to be willing to take that moral inventory, that personal inventory, like, really look at and describe what it is for you that is causing you issue. But also, I want you to say, how do I want to experience living? Write that down, because that's an important question.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that works with me gets this drilled into their head. How do I want to experience living? How do I want to see myself experiencing living? How do I want to experience my environment? And how do I want my environment to receive me? Now we're like, oh, I have no idea. If we know what we want to change, we have to start thinking about how we want it to change. What do we want it to look like, so that we can actually create an effective plan of action. Like, there has to be specific things.
Yes.
And if you get some of these answers, or a vague roundabout way, then you have even more questions that you can interview. Remember, the clinician isn't interviewing you, you're interviewing the clinician or the facility. They are getting paid to serve you, not the masses. How can you help me? Look, I've done my soul searching. I've done my everything. Like, this is where I'm at. This is what I want it to look like. Can you help me? Right? Or are you just going to listen to me talk for 2 years and I'm going to still be doing the same thing? Because that can happen without the right provider. Um, and then there's other things you can do to help you get to the answers to those questions. You can take a whole health survey. You probably can find some online. You can reach out to me. I'd be happy to connect you with a whole health survey so you can fill out a questionnaire. Get an assessment. It's helpful for a practitioner to know what we're assessing. Like, is it your relationship with food, or, what is it? But get an assessment. Have somebody else help you understand what it is that would benefit you. And see who speaks your language. If the way they talk, if the way they do things doesn't resonate with you, if their level of passion is not igniting inspiration inside of you, maybe keep looking.
Yeah.
Right?
There has to be a connection, because you're right. Maybe you'll be sitting and talking to that person for 2 years, and there's really no recovery, no transformation, right? Because
Yeah.
transformation is the most important part in
Right.
recovery, right? Acceptance, and then you transform. So it was funny when you were saying, it might be because some people have a connotation that it may be like just chemical, or addiction and things like that. But you were talking about shopping and things like that. It's funny. I just learned that in the US, the average household have actually average of $14,000 of things they don't need. $14,000 worth of things they don't need because they just keep on buying, right?
Because
So
it was
that's actually a
cute.
form of addiction, right?
And then they tell me they can't afford me. But, it's okay. you
Yeah,
know,
and sometimes they don't acknowledge that it's actually an addiction. Yeah.
right.
And some people also would like be going for a job and just start and leave, or start a business and start and don't pursue. It's For me, it's also a form of addiction because
Yeah.
you're
Failure
not
to
going
launch.
anywhere,
Failure
right?
to launch. 100%.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what has been the biggest influence in your life?
Mm. Oh, there's probably going to be, again, a little bit of a list that happens behind that, because I can't,
Mm-hmm.
can't pinpoint to any one specific thing, but I will say, I think, um, I'm going to say that the biggest life transformation came about when I learned Julian Rotter's locus of control theory. And that is truly what illuminated for me how we as people, myself, rely on things outside of us, how we as people allow for things outside of us to manipulate how we think, feel, act, and believe. And so when we're in this external locus of control position, you know, we're giving our power away. So when I learned that, we're all born in that external position because we're reliant on our parents to feed us, change us, all of that, and how we're supposed to be moving into this internally driven space. And along the line, something happens. And I'm going to say, school age, early adolescence, even in young adulthood for some, we start to get these outside messages, these external things that start to maybe decrease our self-esteem. That perhaps, create social anxieties, things that, make us not feel worthy, valued, or valid in life, right? Kids can be brutal. Kids can be brutal when they talk about, how attractive you are or not attractive you are, like all of these things. And then we start getting introduced to that experimental stage of, whatever it might be. For some people, it's extreme sports that they, in that adolescent period where they, really get that adrenaline, dopamine rush, to, people getting that, that rush of a high from sniffing glue, like there's
Mhm.
somewhere, and then they get introduced to that, and then it alters them, and then suddenly maybe they feel like they belong in this clique, or, we just along the way start to take on other people's messages, worldly messages, because it may not even be directed at us, but if we don't hear it through the right filter or see it through the right lens, and it gets skewed in our own translation, it's going to affect us. And so I think it is, when I started to learn the theory, and as I started watching it in my life, the more internally driven I became, and the less outwardly seeking I became.
So that's when you decide to become a coach and entrepreneur.
Uh, you know, my recovery journey, really, because everything isn't one size fit all, is when I decided
Mhm.
that I was going to, move into this industry. And it's because, treatment, traditional standardized treatments, which all have a purpose and a place, and they're all valid. When I left that 30 days of residential, right, which is about all we get, 30 days of treatment was not undoing 30 years of conditioned ways of being. I had a long story, so that 30 days wasn't going to do it. And, AA was, nice, but for me, it was just the social support. So I went to school, and I just started learning, and I did, and the more I learned and got about, addiction, the more hooked I became. And then I decided to go down the path. And what really led me to becoming a coach was, while I was getting my addiction treatment counseling certification, and as I was transitioning into my degree studies, my psych degree studies, I came across coaching as an effective psychological practice. And so I incorporated that into my degree studies, but then also sought out an accredited coaching program for addictions. So I had all three of those things going. So it was happening in early recovery for me, because I started school, I want to say 3 months into recovery. Um, so it was literally, for me, it was the method that worked, right? Stabilization and then school. For others, it may not look that way. Um,
Mhm.
so that's what my recovery journey and my educational process all was all in one.
So what were the challenges while you were on this process? What were the challenges you encountered?
Post acute withdrawal, because that's something that we all face off and on throughout the first 2 years. It's generally what keeps people from being successful and staying sober. Um, and there are varying degrees for the different types of addictive, behaviors and processes. And that just could be, sheer complacency. But post acute withdrawal was something that, did create barriers, because it for all intent and purposes, post acute withdrawal symptoms are PMS on steroids. So, you have a gamut of things that you're dealing with on an emotional level.
Mhm.
That was a challenge for me. And then the confidence, because again, like I said, society holds a very narrow perspective around the words addiction and recovery. So how do you come out feeling super confident, launching a private practice nationally, right? Internationally, if you want to get down to it, and have people, feel like people are going to take you seriously when you're somebody in recovery. Um, so it takes some time to build up that confidence.
Yeah. So what do you think are the reasons why some people are not successful with their recovery journey? They go back. They'll be in the recovery and then they go back. So what are the in your practice, what are the common reasons?
Complacency, post-acute withdrawal, and not gaining the appropriate life skills. Um, because as I was talking about earlier, right, as we're growing up, we get these conditioned ways of viewing our environment. And emotional intelligence is not something that is innately given to every single being. We may think it is. I know a lot of people that say, oh, I've got high EQ. I've got a high EQ.
Mhm.
And I get done with them and they're like, oh, I don't. And because we don't truly know what it is or what it means and what it takes to actually create it, because emotional intelligence is something that has to be learned, it has to be cultivated, it has to be created, it has to be nurtured, it has to be it has to be paid attention to, right? You can't just be, you can't learn what it is and then not do anything to nurture it
Mhm.
and be complacent about it. Just because you say you have emotional intelligence doesn't mean that you do. We have to have things that we don't learn. Like, how do you effectively leave your limbic system and operate from your frontal lobe when things are knee jerk and reactive? We're all driven by instant gratification. A text comes in, can you not pick it up? If you see the lights go off, can you not pick it up? You've got to train yourself to be able to do that.
Mhm.
That's an addictive
Yes.
thing right there, right? So we have to learn how to abandon impulsivity and become responsive in all things we do, not reactive. We also have to learn. We got there's way too many for me to list, so I'm just not going to try. But we have to learn, the art of pause. We have to become responsive. We need to, develop true distress tolerance. We have
Mhm.
to have emotion regulation. We need to learn how to be assertive, effectively assertive, because people generally have the wrong view of or opinion of what assertiveness really is. Because assertiveness is showing up genuine, authentic, transparent, and honest, right? Like it's not a rigid, hard thing. Um, and we have to learn how to not be so judgy. We have to get out of the stance of a judger. And so, there's again, there's a list of emotional skill sets that we have to develop and have to create in order to be successful. Or the very first traumatic event or disappointment that we experience is going to present with challenge. We're going to have a reason to celebrate. And we're going to say, why not just this one time on a glass champagne, just the toast? No, not just the toast. Like, no,
Yes.
we're gonna, if we're not persistent in a persistent pursuit of the life that we want to experience living, we're gonna get complacent and we're gonna falter.
Yes. Very, very true. So you're also training people to become life coaches. So what would be the best uh what advice would you give to people out there who wants to be a life coach as well?
So life coach is a big umbrella. So if you have the aspiration of getting your life coaching credentials, I highly recommend you have an idea of what niche or population you want to serve so that you can narrow that down. Sure, I'm a life coach, um, but I have very specific specialties, and and I stay in my lane. But so I do teach for the accredited organization that I got my certification through. I am a trainer for recovery coaching, and that's what I recommend, is that you find an accredited program. There are a lot of good programs out there if you want to just go work for them, and only do their program and their methods and modalities. That's great. But if you ever have hopes of having your own practice, your own business, if you want to be able to spin off, I suggest you go to an accredited program where you can actually, you're getting things that have been, peer reviewed. They've been looked at by scholars, and that you're not going to be doing harm. And you'll know exactly how you need to go about screening and assessing people for right fit, things like that. It's just, I don't know. My spirituality is filled with morals, ethics, and integrity. So, it's just the way I live my life. And so I would recommend, that, making sure you're paying attention to that. Because we are talking about working with people in their lives, and we need to make sure that we can do that with the utmost care.
Very true, very true. So, you mentioned about business. So, as an entrepreneur, what advice would you give, either if they wanted to be a life coach or a different field of entrepreneurship? What advice would you like to give those people out there who are new entrepreneurs and those who wanted to be entrepreneurs?
One, know your audience, right? Again, stay in your scope. Don't try to be broad. Don't try to be, throw this broad umbrella out there and see what lands just because you want, to be of service. Know what your level of expertise is and where you can be of the highest level of success or assistance or guidance or whatever it is. Know what that is and start there. Don't wait for your program to be perfect before you launch. I see so many people like, it's almost done, it's almost done, it's almost done. And we have that failure to launch thing, right? That's the fear of failure. And that does nothing but create the, failure to launch. Get your program enough ready so that you can start with your first client and be building it along with them, because there's nothing better than, being an active process with somebody to document what works and what works well and why. And so just be honest with that client. You're your first client, and this is what your guys are doing, and you will build something great. My program doesn't look like it did when I started 7 years ago. When I launched, I started it 7 years ago, but it doesn't look like it did then. It has improved and grown and expanded over time. But I started very small. Start with handouts and worksheets. I don't know, right? Because you want to stay in that focus. And again, just know your audience, and don't try to paint a picture of something that you're not. I'm new. I'm a new coach, but I'm super passionate about A, B, C, and D. And I know that I can help you, and this is how I can help you, and this is what I can offer you. But don't try to be, come out like boss babe and pretend that you are if that's not where you're at.
Yes. Yeah.
Just be genuine. Yeah.
Yeah, be genuine and look for the passion, right? Where you can really um cultivate yourself, and then so you'll be able to help others. Yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much. So if there is one specific takeaway that you want our audience to take from to remember from this episode, what would it be?
Go back to where I told you to get a piece of paper and take notes. Write those questions down. That's your internal or your internal self-observation prompts. Start there. Everything else I said is probably, like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Start there. Ask yourself those very deep questions and ask yourself them over and over again until you feel like you're giving yourself a transparent, genuine, authentic answer. And if you need help, feel free to, ask for guidance.
Yes. So where can they find Tricia Parido?
Turning Leaves, LEAVES, recovery.com. There's a contact us button at the top in the menu. You can write me a big old fat long note there, and then I will tell you what's the best way to connect with me from there, whether that's a consultation, a collaboration, a meet and greet, whatever. But if you give me a personal note that gives me some sort of meat and potatoes, I will. I promise you, it's coming directly to my inbox. So
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, Tricia, for your time today. I hope um, everyone who's watching, please share this video to those who needs this really, because I know there will be somebody out there who really need this to listen to this episode. And I've also added Tricia's information in the description of this episode, and the link actually to the website. So you just need to click on that link. Yep. So thank you so much again.
thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you. And to close this, I just want to leave you with this. Sometimes life is not the way we intend to be. We make choices that we are not proud of. But as Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising up every time we fail. Thank you so much for watching Level Up with Naomi today. And don't forget to watch out for the next episodes. Thank you again, Tricia. God bless you all. Bye.